So hi, this is Claudia Filos with the Center for Hellenic Studies in Washington, D.C. Today we are hosting a CHS open house discussion with Professor Ioanna Papadopoulou. She is the EU Fellow of Multidisciplinary Research and IT Publications at the Center for Hellenic Studies, and she's also an associate at the University Libre de Brussels. I'm sure I probably didn't do that correctly, so feel free to correct me.
Perfect.
Great. In connection with the philosophy, ancient philosophy and medieval studies, is that correct?
Yes.
Great. So, Professor Papadopoulou, thank you so much for joining us. You're a cherished colleague, and it's really an honor to welcome you to our community today.
Claudia, I really want to thank you very much for your invitation. It's an honor and a pleasure for me, a real pleasure. I have an ongoing dialogue with you, which is always so rich, and I would like to congratulate you as well for all of you for the beautiful work you're doing. So I'm really happy to be with you today.
Thank you. So, Ioanna, today you're going to talk to us about actually the Odyssey, and you gave us a beautiful title for the focus of our discussion, which is Odyssey or the Return of a Song.
Yes.
And you've selected some focus passages for us. So those are available on the Hour 25 website on the blog posts associated with this discussion, so people could look there to find them. So why don't we just start?
Yes.
Well, do you want to share a few thoughts first about your general research interests, and then maybe we can start a discussion? Or?
I think we have. Thank you. I think we have much to do in 1 hour. Okay. What can I say? I can say that the Odyssey is one of my great passions. Multidisciplinary research and is a great passion as well. And this is, let's say, this is my interest as well in digital humanities comes from that, and I think we'll talk about all this later.
Great. So shall we just start talking about the Odyssey and the passages? Where would you like to begin?
Yes. So as I send a text about what is the frame of the theme, the general, let's say, the thread in the Odyssey, which in a way reveals how important the return of the song is. I will not be long in my presentation. In my introduction to the subject, what I want to stress is that, in fact, of course, the Odyssey is about the return of the hero, but we all know how complex the Homeric poetry is, and how much one has to look for layers deeper and deeper and deeper. And of course, the narrative stands for itself as a travel, but there are multiple travels and returns going on in this very complex structure that is the Odyssey. And you know that Aristotle in the Poetics stresses the difference between the Iliad and the Odyssey. You have a simple structure on the one side, not that ever somebody could call the Iliad simple, but it's a matter, as you know, of composition and structure. But the Odyssey has different threads, different places, different periods, symbolically, and this is what makes this, how can I say, this journey through the Odyssey is as well a real journey with its hidden places, more, more less apparent themes, but with the choice of passages I made, I could have put 20 more, 30 more, but you told me, and you're right, don't put much, because there is no way of doing any close reading with a real handout, a full handout. Okay, so if I want briefly then to introduce the discussion, I would say, hello, more people appear.
Yes, hi. This is really a very joyous occasion, actually. Euthymia is joining us in a hangout for the first time. Um,
Oh, that's nice.
yes, from Greece. Am I right,
Yes,
Euthymia?
yes,
You're joining us
yes.
from Greece today?
Yes, yes, I hear you. Do you hear me?
We do.
Yes,
Thank you so
yes,
much.
yes. Hello.
So,
Kalimera.
Euthymia,
Hello, hello to everybody.
Kalimera. Uh,
so Euthymia, it would be great if we're very eager to have your participation. While in between times when you're speaking, can you put your microphone on mute? Do you know how to do that?
uh, I don't know how to do that. I have to take out
Okay, I tell you what, I can mute you for a second, okay? And then if you want to
perhaps
talk,
I
you
don't
could.
know. I'll help. Yanni?
Okay. So thank you
okay.
so much, Ioanna. So I think we're so
Yeah.
delighted that Euthymia is joining us. So, but I think we were just getting into the discussion about, you're talking about the different frames within the Odyssey, the different times.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and yes, sorry. So one of
So
the, yeah.
yes. Yeah. Tell me. Yeah.
No, I was going to ask you, so I know you were discussing in the paper that you sent us also two different worlds, right? A human world
Yes.
and a non-human
Yes.
world.
Yes. Yes. I can briefly outline what I sent in the notes about the itineraries of Cleos. I invited you to read closely two passages: the beginning of the Odyssey and almost the end of the Odyssey. And in the first passage, famous passage, so much commented passage, where we see Penelope appearing for the first time in the poem. Okay, and we really see Telemachos, the suitors, and Penelope appearing, and the occasion is very important. It is a song again. It is Phemios' song, the Bard of Ithaca, who is singing the wretched return, the unhappy, the ominous return of the Achaeans. And what is very interesting in this scene is that the poet, well, the whole scroll, the whole rhapsody, really puts into place the symbolic markers that will help readers or the audience understand the distribution of the characters. Every single detail is important. And you know that for a long time, Homeric poetry was considered to be, I'm not talking about the last decades, of course, the primitivist reading of the Odyssey and the Iliad might make people think that, you know, there are ornamental scenes and there are things that are not tightly woven together, but in fact, and aside the debate, if it is of the Unitarians and those who think that there are different poets or whatever, the thing is that what we have is so tightly woven together, and every word is important, which must make us realize once more that those poems, as Greg has beautifully explained in Homer the Classic, are really a phenomenon, not just a poem, but a cultural phenomenon of major importance for centuries. And I'm coming back. This is just to invite you once more to read these passages in this way, very specific way. And even our discussion will not, of course, exhaust the layers, the details, and the importance of each word and level. So we have this very important scene, the audience, where each character or collective character receives an identity card, a poetic identity card. In this audience, we will see, first of all, the main point here is the reaction of Penelope. She is the one who wants to keep an irreverent song, to silence it, but she doesn't succeed. Telemachos reacts, and he reacts in a strange way, because he says, he has reacted already in a strange way before, while he was talking with Athena Mentis, who encourages him to go to look for his for news for his father. And as I say in the paper, his reaction is shockingly negative, because he's using strong expressions that go against the very idea of kleos. This doesn't mean that Telemachos is to be completely assimilated with the suitors, but it is certain that the poet wants to show the evolution from a nipios Telemachos, and I'll use Greg's translation, disconnected, to the Telemachos who, through a whole, journey, etc., will arrive to another level of consciousness.
That's beautiful.
So,
okay.
If you want to stop me, stop me.
That's fine. So, do we have any questions, first of all, from our community members? And unfortunately, we lost Euthymia. I hope she'll join us again.
Oh, okay.
Good, Jackie. Oh, hi. Jackie Donlan from Boston. I am so excited to talk to you today, because from the very first time I read the Odyssey, which was just in my first course of Heroes X, I always thought Odysseus was dead at the end. I mean, you just got this overwhelming sense that he wasn't alive when he goes back to Ithaca, at least I did, that he was already dead and he was returning as a cult hero. And then I'm listening to the lectures and the lessons, and I'm going, wow, they're talking about him, he's alive, but he's dead. And then I came to realize I was hearing the overlapping circles of the story. At least that's how I pictured it. I love the way that you pointed it out, those passages, where Telemachus talks about a new song, and again, it seems like it's layers and layers. But yet, is that a fair assumption that there are these layers, as you're talking about, of the storyline? One where he's already almost a god. I mean, they go in the harbor, the South Harbor, that's really just for immortals when he returns to Ithaca. No, okay, wrong. Right? Okay. But on the other hand, it just seems like at the end, it's just these layers of storylines. I mean, we can go on forever, but I want to give someone else a chance. So.
Yeah. Claudia, do you want me to?
Yeah, I think it'd be great if you could respond briefly to what Jackie has just said, and then also I think it'd be great if we could take a moment to read that passage together, maybe.
Okay, yeah. It is like an Odyssean irony, Claudia, to ask me to respond briefly.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine.
An absolute feat. But I'm just so happy, and I feel so, like Omofrosini with Janet, you said?
Jackie. There's a lot of J's. That's okay.
Yeah, Jackie. First of all, as she explains how she feels, how she felt when she was reading a poem, which really, invites in a kind of initiation, progressive reading and rereading and feeling things, and then not being able to, document them immediately. And I went through this, and I want to say 2 words about it. When I was much younger, a century ago, when I was writing my thesis first and then my book on the Odyssey, and it was this constant feeling that I could not understand what was available to me, and then at some point I made the step, the leap, and said, okay, now it has to be like that.
Yeah.
You understand. Yeah. This was just to say that it is not easy, and one cannot answer in a definite way, and what I could put in this answer would demand time to be really answered completely from an academic point of view. But I wanted to understand better what you mean when you say Odysseus is dead. I just feel really close to your reaction, because I think that as well that this return is the return of the hero.
Yes.
Who has, for one reason or another, to establish his cult himself.
Yes.
Even if the last, how can I say, the last move, he will not bury himself, of course. He will not, but the whole symbolic structure is about that. We do not really, it is not composed in a way where we can perceive from the beginning clear-cut distinctions, alive, dead, real world. This is, I think, a text of high theological importance. And Odysseus comes back to bring back the song, because he doesn't really return.
Right. Okay.
So I know that the answer is really incomplete, but while we discuss, I hope we'll say more.
That's totally beautiful. Actually, could we look at the passage and read it together at this point?
Yes.
Does anyone have it handy? Who would like to read? Sarah, do you have it handy?
Yeah, okay.
That'd be great.
Okay, so this is from scroll 1 of Odyssey, and it's talking about Penelope. Then, shedding tears, she addressed the godlike singer. Phemius, you know many another thing that charms mortals, all about the deeds of men and gods, to which singers give glory. Sing for them, the suitors, some one of those songs of glory, and let them in silence drink their wine. But you, stop this sad song, this disastrous song, which again and again affects my very own heart in my breast, wearing it down, since an unforgettable grief comes over me more than ever. I feel this way because that is the kind of person I long for, recalling his memory again and again, the memory of a man whose glory, whose kleos, extends far and wide throughout Hellas and midmost Argos. Mother, answered the spirited Telemachus, let the bard sing what he has a mind to. Bards are not responsible for the ills they sing of. It is Zeus, not they, who is responsible, and who sends weal or woe upon humankind according to his own good pleasure. There should be no feeling of sanction against this one for singing the ill-fated return of the Danaans, for people always favour most warmly the kleos of the latest songs. Make up your mind to it, and bear it. Odysseus is not the only man who never came back from Troy, but many another went down as well as he.
Thank you.
Wow.
Beautiful reading.
Okay, folks. That was moving. Okay, so what are our thoughts about this passage? I mean,
so
go ahead.
Shall I just say that when I'm talking about a thread, there is really a consistent thread from the beginning, even before Phemius appears, where you will have competing versions of the Nostos. The one will be about death, about absence of kleos, about wretched return. These are the words of Telemachus. This is what is implied and even clear about Phemius. This is the answer of Telemachus to his mother. Penelope is the one to pronounce the formula of heroic glory, and it is the one of the typical formulas. And so you will have, down to the end of the poem, this ongoing divide and conflict, which is about life and death, would say Douglas Frame. It's not just two different opinions. It is about establishing or not establishing the real heroic profile of Odysseus in tradition and in Ithaca. So, and I think with saying that I can speak less in the remaining hour. So the play that goes on and that will go on is that when you have after that the assembly in Ithaca, this kind of confrontation of characters will continue in a very subtle way, where not only, of course, the suitors do not agree, and have no interest to agree that Odysseus is alive. Not only Penelope, I mean, we cannot only talk about emotions, interests, opinions. There is all the time another level. On the level of narrative, the suitors will talk against any sign, including what the seer says in the Agora of Ithaca, any sign that might encourage anybody to think that Odysseus will come back. We understand the interest, but the poet is not just interested in this, the poets. The real focus is on what kind of nose each character shows, and what kind of nose each character has. And there is a hierarchy of characters in this way, and truth comes from the mouth of the gods. The suitors will be the characters who will, because of their own non-perception or way of perceiving things, of their profile, from which Telemachus will be progressively detached, but by divine intervention, not because he is like that. He is anonymous, he doesn't know who his father is, he is the son of Penelope. This is a very nice verse. I know that I am the son of Penelope. My mother says that. This is lack of tradition behind. And so the important thing to link as well with my last paragraph in what I sent with Nostos, as Douglas Frame interprets it, the constant theme is that because the suitors don't have the nose that they should have, they will perish. And that in Ithaca, the king of Metis and the queen of Metis, who are the superior characters, Odysseus, I'm just trying to show the hierarchy. Odysseus is the most intelligent of all men, and Penelope is his pair. And it is said like that, she is the most, not polytropos, periphron, etc. She doesn't have the same epithets. So you have a hierarchy, and we know from already from the father of God and man that you need Metis to have a stable royalty. And this we can see developed in the Odyssey as well. The king and the queen can keep the royalty stable, because the difference in the Odyssey, not only for Odysseus and his wanderings, is what kind of nose each character has, and how this nose can help escape death and oblivion. I hope I said enough.
Yes, that's beautiful. Okay, so I mean, you really bring us down to the crux of it, which is that naos is the key to nostos, right? And so now I'm wondering, what our community members are thinking about this passage, and about how we're going to start thinking about not just the return of the hero and naos as the key to the return of the hero, but I think you're also leading us to think about naos as the key to the return of the song, or a song. Is that right? The song. Okay, so let's turn it. Yeah, Bill, please.
Hi, this is Bill Moulton from Petersburg, Alaska. It's 7:23 in the morning here.
Okay. Thank you for joining us.
So what always strikes me about that passage is Telemachus' bad attitude towards his mother and the things he says. And I really appreciate your suggestion that this is just the starting point. We get to see his growth as a man, and hopefully his nos in the process. But I don't recall that much evidence that he got smarter and more mature and wiser. Do you see that in reading?
Nice question. It is quite common in scholarship to say that here starts his process of getting more mature and more like his father. And very often, and you are right in pointing out this, very often we leave aside, very often readers leave aside fundamental characteristics of Telemachus' character and and fundamental passages in the Odyssey. They, not always, but often and for a long time, all this was not put together, I think, in a sufficient way, because, and the key to that, and this was what was blocking as well my reading, until I decided to get rid of whatever stopped me in bibliography. This is an important step always, and to consider that Penelope is the key to the poetics of the Odyssey. And once you give to Penelope this role, then other layers unfold. Because if you see, which is a constant characteristic in the Odyssey, this confrontation of characters. And if one decides really, and not only the Odyssey, in the Iliad it's more direct. Warriors fight. You had Richard Martin with you. Warriors fight with words and weapons. But there it's more direct. In the Odyssey, spaces, temporalities make that sometimes versions do not oppose each other directly. So you have, that's why I'm talking about threads. So if you take the threads and you see how constant a character is, and how attached to a position, to a true version, to a value, to a social value, then you make better sense of the poem. The notion of the thread is very important in the Odyssey. So, yes, you're right, for a while, Telemachus is really ambiguous. The only thing that we can say to his discharge, as we say in French at last, à sa décharge, is that there is no bad will. This is what distinguishes him. But at the same time, he is Nipios, because he's not able to capture that songs like that, Phemius' song, talking about a wretched return, even if we're just pragmatic, are not what the palace needs when it is invaded by the suitors. And the poem takes pains to say that Phemius is singing for the suitors anangi, because he's obliged to do so. So I think that we always have markers to guide us. But for the Odyssey, as regards the Odyssey, it is important to be very, very careful about how the threads are woven. So this takes some time for Telemachus. It takes some time to play his role finally. And another thing that is that I believe strongly in is that whatever Telemachus will do, it will be always the next generation. So that we have staged.
This is not his epic, it's his dad's epic.
It's inside the economy of the Odyssey. It is I think it's the fundamental structure of the wanderings, and this is stuck.
Well, I can hear you, Ioanna.
You can, yes. Okay.
Yes.
So I think that this difference of generations is probably the fundamental structure of the Odyssey, which explains many things like, and this, I remember years before, struck me when I realized that when the suitors descended to Hades, book 24, a word from Agamemnon makes us understand that it is a group the same that has the same age, because it says, "What are you doing here, all of you distinguished, noble, and of the same age?" This is of major importance in ancient Greece. So you have a generation. It is the generation of Telemachus as well. And this generation doesn't understand, Telemachus included, what a hero is. And the poet chooses to Penelope to carry, to assume, to preserve Kleos. She is the one who finally is the key. So Penelope is in the heroic world, and if we have doubts about it, we read the second passage, where what she has gone through is, for what she has gone through, the word aethlos is used. And as well, she is the audience of the hero. There would be how many different ways to stage this delivery from Odysseus in Ithaca of his song, because this is his song. And another element, for those who didn't read my notes, is that at the end, in the Nekia, so the second Nekia, the way the poem announces itself is as the Song of Penelope, for Penelope, which the immortals will build, like that, build, tefcho, tefxen. So just because it is very dear to me to show the idea of the thread and the way it is woven in a very specific way, Odyssean way.
That's beautiful. Janet, I saw you had a hand. Do you still have a question?
Hi, this is Janet Osalak from New York.
Hi, Janet.
Hi. It might be a far-reaching comparison, but thinking about news of the suitors, what they are thinking, and they are trying to stop the chaos of Odysseus. And if I compare them to men of Odysseus, and they are trying to get the cattle of the Helios, they shouldn't touch, they shouldn't touch them, but they did, and they got punished after.
Excellent.
And here they are trying to get Penelope, and she is equal to Odysseus. So they are trying to reach something that they shouldn't reach. Can we have that kind of comparison?
I think that this is an excellent thought, and this is what I am implying. Exactly. Exactly what you're saying, that the always using the criterion of the relation to the heroic world, which can be an irreverent relation, which can be complying with, the tradition, respecting the hero, etc. Because as well, it is not at all accidental that the Odyssey starts by affirming that Odysseus is already probably and surely the supreme hero, because the second verse is, he took Troy. I mean, of course, I've said myself, and readers and colleagues say, and it's true from certain aspects, that Odysseus is establishing his kleos, etc. Yeah, the second verse says, he took Troy. Beautiful. So I mean, yeah.
Okay.
After that, the thing is to bring back the song from where he is to Ithaca, and to establish in Ithaca his cult. The whole Greece knows who he is. I mean, we have many markers and places in the text who tell us that Odysseus has already glory. Only in Ithaca there is this Nipios situation, where the generation, in the absence of the hero, the generation of Telemachus and the suitors is not aware of who Odysseus is. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very much liked the comparison.
Thank you.
Great. So is there time now? Maybe this is a good moment to read our second passage together. Is this a good moment, Ioanna? So Sarah, can we ask you to read again?
Okay. So the second passage is from scroll 23, starting at line 300. When Odysseus and Penelope had had their fill of love, they fell talking with one another. She, shining among women, told him how much she had to bear in seeing the house filled with a crowd of wicked suitors who had killed so many sheep and oxen on her account, and had drunk so many casks of wine. Odysseus, in his turn, told her what he had suffered, and how much trouble he had himself given to other people. He told her everything, and she was so delighted to listen that she never went to sleep till he'd ended his whole story. He began with his victory over the Cicones, and how he thence reached the fertile land of the lotus eaters. He told her all about the Cyclops, and how he had punished him for having so ruthlessly eaten his brave comrades. How he then went on to Iolus, who received him hospitably and furthered him on his way, but even so he was not to reach home, for to his great grief a hurricane carried him out to sea again. How he went on to the Laestrygonian city, Telepilos, where the people destroyed all his ships with their crews, save himself and his own ships only. Then he told of cunning Circe and her craft, and how he sailed to the chill house of Hades to consult the spirit of the Theban prophet Tiresias, and how he saw his old comrades in arms, and his mother who bore him and brought him up when he was a child. How he then heard the wondrous singing of the sirens, and went on to the wandering rocks and terrifying Charybdis, and to Scylla, whom no man had ever yet passed in safety. How his men then ate the cattle of the sun god, and how Zeus therefore struck the ship with his thunderbolts, so that all his men perished together, himself alone being left alive. How at last he reached the Ogygian island and the nymph Calypso, who kept him there in a cave and fed him, and wanted him to marry her, in which case she intended making him immortal, so that he should never grow old. But she could not persuade him to let her do so, and how, after much suffering, he had found his way to the Phaeacians, who had treated him as though he had been a god, and sent him back in a ship to his own country, after having given him gold, bronze, and raiment in great abundance. This was the last thing about which he told her, for here a deep sleep took hold upon him and eased the burden of his sorrows. Then the owl-vision goddess Athena thought of another matter. When she had thought that Odysseus had had enough both of his wife and of repose, she bade golden-throned Dawn rise out of Oceanus, that she might shed light upon humankind. Then Odysseus rose from his comfortable bed and said to Penelope, "Wife, we have both of us had our full share of trials, you here in lamenting my grievous return, and I being constrained through sufferings by Zeus and the rest of the gods, far from my homeland, though longing for it."
Beautiful reading.
So this time around, when I was reading that passage, I'd forgotten how much he told her. So I was looking to see if he mentioned his lady friends along the way. And particularly with Sarah rereading it, I'm thinking of Zeus and Hera on Mount Ida in the seduction scene, where he has to go over all of his previous girlfriends before he married her. And then of course, he too falls asleep. I mean,
So I cannot hear.
Are there other reactions too to this passage? Olga or Jackie or?
Well, yeah, I had the passage for me. It did emphasize. It was. Thank you for sharing these passages with us. Did emphasize the importance of Penelope for me, and something that you had just said prior to the reading. Also struck a chord was that you said that she is, her importance both positionally, geographically, metaphorically, because the other thing that struck me first time I read the Odyssey was how precise Penelope was always positioned. It was, in a poem that every word is important. There were extensive, almost stage directions. Positioning her next to a burying post, next to a fire, against the wall. So it always seemed like she was being positioned to be adorned for adoration, and so that she is really almost like the metaphorically Athena or Athena Pallas or whatever. So it who is really, you know, how this all started, right? So but it wasn't, you know, until those passages that it felt like, oh yeah, maybe that's right. So I didn't know how you thought about her positioning, or
once more. Tell me. Yeah, tell us. Sorry, I think I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. Just that how central she was, and the fact that Odysseus tells her, and she's the one who gives the final test. It all revolves around her, and I never quite thought of it to that extent.
Yes. Once more, I like very much your reading, and yes, and I very much like this cinematographic aspect you give about Penelope, and it completely agrees with ancient ideas about Homeric poetry, where the fact that it was considered to picture, to I'll send you the passage on this. This aspect of Homeric poetry is very dear to me, and I think it's very important, because if you give this, the example you give, and other examples, and if you give the way of Helen is talking about the army in the Tihoscopia in the Iliad, the poet chooses this visual way of picturing things. And from antiquity, it was said that Homer is visual.
Yeah.
So I think your remark is important. It's not just stylistic, amazing the way. If you go back, if we all of us go back to the first passage, I don't mean that we have to reread it, but just indulge into this way of staging the song that will be heard and bringing in, if we realize how much it is cinematographic and how this aspect becomes part of the meaning. And I must say that what you said about staging her in this way, and I will use what you said, this specific thing that staging her this way, I mean, the fact that she's always appearing really in almost, I would not say, I'll say for the sake of swiftness, that almost hieratic. It is true that serves very much my argument about, you know, she being part of the heroic world. It fits in perfectly, this way of staging, this care about her appearance. So I think that it is very important.
Thank you so much. So Sarah, I saw, did you have a question or a comment that you wanted to share a moment ago?
I do have one or two thoughts, but I think there are some questions in the Q&A, so maybe you'd like to take those first?
That's fine. Great. That was going to be my next thought. So actually, Kimmy has a comment. She's saying, hold on, I'm going to select it. So Kimmy says, I'm having difficulty thinking that Odysseus has returned, that he has achieved his nostos. He tells Penelope about the journey he still must make, as told by Tiresias, whom he met in Hades.
Yes, exactly. Do you want to add something, Claudia?
Well, I'm just wondering, could you comment upon that? So I guess what Kimmy is suggesting is she's doubting that he has returned because he needs to leave again, right?
Exactly.
As soon as he gets home. So to what extent is it? Does he have a nostos?
The question is fundamental, and that's what we are discussing here. That it's not about the return of the hero. Of course, it is as well about the return of the hero and him escaping. And I would like to stress once again how important it is that he escapes death. It is in the very center of the main notions of the Odyssey, which are nos, nostos, and we already referred to Douglas Frame's fundamental study of those terms, the fact that Odysseus escapes death is very important. So already this is part of the answer. He comes back from death. He comes back to light and life. He does. Now, the matters relating to Nostos and Odysseus are complex. What is absolutely certain, and this is what I'm trying to underline here, is that he goes back to Ithaca. The Odyssey is about Nostos to Ithaca. And to me, as I said, it is more the Nostos of the song, because what he has to bring back is the true version. And I do not side with my colleagues who find any indeterminacy in the Odyssey. I think that the Odyssey is completely determined and over-determined, and that not that it is easy to read the Odyssey, but I mean as regards values and as regards the thread of the Nostos, I think that he does bring home his real Kleos, and that he establishes his Kleos in Ithaca. And as you know, Homeric poetry is not exhaustive. It is not about the whole Odyssean saga. It's about this specific point.
So, you know, please.
I think,
okay,
for the moment, it's enough.
So, you know, we actually have a comment that I think draws right upon what you're discussing here, and it's from another cherished community member, Renan, and he is prompting us with this comment. He's saying, the rise of dawn gold-throned upon humankind in scroll 23 is the rise of the Odyssean tradition, far-reaching, starting from Ithaca. That's a question, so he's asking, is that the case? Is it like an ultimate marker to Odysseus, to the other traditions about the hero? So I guess he's trying. Sure. So basically, is the rise of dawn gold enthroned upon humankind in scroll 23 the rise of the Odyssean tradition that's far-reaching, starting from Ithaca?
It's amazing. It's an amazing remark. It's amazing poetry, and yes, and I'll direct you to Douglas's work. I think, I'm not absolutely certain, that he comments upon this line in the first book, the Nous, the Myth of Return in Early Greek Epic. I can send the information, but I mean, yes, all the symbolism of light in the Odyssey, east, west, is meaningful. Thank you. This is a beautiful remark.
Thanks. And let's do one more, and then we'll return to our community members who are in the Hangout with us. So this is from Raphael, I believe.
The Greek Raphael? From Greece?
I'm not sure. So this Raphael is asking or saying, in a way, the Odyssey may be the song of Odysseus, but it is also a manual, in quotes, for understanding the maturing of the Nostos, of the context of the ancient Greek tradition. I mean, that's a really interesting comment, right? So the tradition, that's a meta comment, right? What do you think about that?
It is all these layers and threads. It is because there are many nostoi in the Odyssey. And what is extremely interesting is how complex, as Aristotle has seen very well, how complex the structure is. And the structure is complex because it has a very strong metapoetic dimension. That's the point, that it is not only about the song, it is about the making of the song. And it is about the making of the song in different ages. It is not only about the making by the hero, it is about its transmission. We are witnessing its transmission. We are witnessing problems of transmission. We are witnessing defined tradition. We are witnessing how important it is to have the right version, and how the wrong version, or how disrespectful attitudes can disintegrate a community. I mean, we could go on and on and on to comment upon this, yes, this meta-poetic.
So, yeah. All right, Ioanna, this is such a beautiful conversation. So I think we could probably continue talking about these two passages probably for a year. So I just want to give you an opportunity, though, to speak about something. I'm not sure if this is the best time, so you can let me know. One of the other documents you shared with us and with our community is a summary of an article, right?
Yes. Yes.
Can you talk for a few minutes about that?
Yes.
And about why that's such an important article and the ideas in that?
Yes, I think that the article is important because it is, of course, it comes from a famous linguist, Charles de Lamberterie, and he's one of the linguists that take a specific position that is not always, that is not so common. And does not always prevail, and because of course it is in French. Those of you who read French, I strongly encourage them to read it, because it gives, ultimately, and it's not the only work of Charles de Lamberterie that is a real lesson of on how to read Homer and Homeric poetics, where the importance of the conjunction of philology and historical linguistics is really great. And to really appreciate in-depth works like Gregory Nage's work and Leonard Mölner and Douglas Frame, it is good to realize that a great part of their argumentation is based on etymology of words. And it is based on etymology of words and on comparative linguistics as work, but it really, really shows something that is inherent in Greek tradition. Words are, as my dear professor and friend Nicole Leroux called them, micro-récits. They are micro-narratives. And if one doesn't bring this, doesn't show this, and doesn't go even much deeper in the etymology of words and show, as I said in my paper here, it is amazing how much the Odyssey comments upon how much the thematic evolution in the Odyssey can be seen as commenting upon the etymology of nostos and nos, as shown by Douglas Frame. And this, Charles de Lamberterie discusses it. So it's, from several points of view, this article is very important and helps reading better major works on Homer and Homeric poetry as well. But as we don't have much time, for whoever wants more information or explanation about the article and all this fascinating field, I'm here.
Oh, that's beautiful. So thank you. So hopefully we can continue that conversation, excuse me, sorry, over the days to come in our community, in our discussion board, and I bet we'll have maybe further blog posts on this topic, because, you know, I think this is our conversation today is really an opportunity to revive and revisit this theme of Nostos and the idea of return to light and life and of a safe and joyful return. These are things I think that we're really just starting to understand within our community, and so we want to work on those some more. So
I would be very happy to see this discussion revive and evolve.
Great. So, so are there any other comments and questions from the members of our, I'm so sorry, from the members in our group right now about the passages, about the Odyssey, Nostos, the return of the song, right? This idea of the song coming back to light and life.
I like putting the emphasis on Penelope. It reminds me of I think I mentioned this before, the scene in the Iliad where Helen is weaving about the war. They tell her to stop and come watch the duel, so then battle stops when she stops weaving. You know, you get that same thing with Penelope, where she weaves the story every day and then unweaves it at night. I've heard Helen referred to as the spirit of that epic. And here, with your emphasis on Penelope, we're seeing the same thing. Penelope is the spirit of this epic. Which, this is all hypothetical, but just something to look at. lately in my readings have been trying to take a different perspective each time I read a piece. So in this case, I was just thinking, imagine if it was Helen who was the Queen of Ithaca, how she would have handled the suitors.
Oh
or worse
my
yet, imagine if it was Clytemnestra who was the Queen of Ithaca handling the situation.
Beautiful. And your question is so inspiring, and you have the answer. Reread the last Nekia and reread the answer of Agamemnon when he realizes what happened, you know, in Ithaca, and you have exactly the answer. You see, I mean, the poetry itself puts it this way. Okay, Penelope is unique. You see, so, and then yeah, it's a very nice way of, you know, of challenging things like that and seeing what the possibilities would be in the tradition. But at least if we remain in the Odyssean poetics, you have a very precious hint in the Nekia where the song of Penelope is announced.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bill, I really like that that you brought in that weaving of Penelope as a sort of a way of talking about the song, because she unravels it, and there she is right in that scroll one trying to stop the song being sung, but it's the wrong song, and it's the wrong weaving. That's given us a whole sort of different way of looking at all of those things, and also the importance of the bards singing. You know, Telemachus, he might be rude to his mother, but he is protecting the bard, and later on he protects the bard right at the end when he begs for his life. He says, yeah, no, we've got to protect him. And then the same bard helps to protect them in their turn because he sings, you know, everybody thinks it's a wedding song, so they're able to get away. So all of these themes, as you said, are threads running through just in each little detail of those passages, and it's absolutely beautiful. So, and you've given us certainly you've given me a lot to think about. So I'm going to go away reread that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, and for your beautiful reading. Thank you.
So, any other comments, Olga or Janet or Jackie?
I could just,
oh, yeah.
I could speak for ages on weaving, you know,
right.
Claudia, but how important it is and how it is really, it reveals major codes of the Odyssey, major codes, but this is a whole different discussion. My thesis was on weaving, and half of it on the Odyssey, so yes,
so maybe you'll come back with us to discuss weaving at another time?
With pleasure. I love this community. Yeah, this would be on weaving then.
Okay, so maybe we can just leave it there for today, and thank everyone for joining us. So whether it's in the early morning, Bill, or in the late afternoon, Sarah, who's joining us from Scotland today, right? And Olga, can you just share with us where you're joining us from right now?
Excuse me, can I share what?
Yes, please.
What? What would you like to know?
Oh, where you're joining us from today?
Where from?
Yes.
Well, from Hungary.
Great. Okay, so you're in Hungary right now.
Yes, yes. I will stay here for the time being, yes.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I enjoyed it very, very much. Thank you.
We really appreciate your participation today. So thank you everyone for joining us. Ioanna, thank you again for joining us. We're all going to continue reading about this and discussing it in the discussion forum at hour 25. And we look forward to our next meeting.
Thank you very much, everybody. It was an amazing discussion. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Claudia.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay.